Hey guys, so this is a video that I've been wanting to make for a while, a discussion video that I've been wanting to make for a while. It's kind of been brewing in my head for a long time, and I just haven't made it because I keep thinking of new things that I would want to add to it, and it's also just kind of intimidating to make as well. When I do stuff like this, I'm a little bit of a perfectionist about it. I really want to make sure everything that I am trying to say will come across in the exact way that I mean for it to come across, and so I've just been kind of working out how I wanted to say everything I'm going to say in this video, and yeah, so let's just get right into it. This is basically about the validity of books as an art form. Are books art? I really want to make sure you know that I'm not pretending that I have all of the answers. I'm not pretending that anything I am saying is any sort of fact whatsoever. Every single thing I say in this video is my own opinion. This is a completely subjective thing. I mean, one of the reasons I'm making this is to hear other people's opinions about it and to actually have some sort of discussion about it. So first off, what is art? What do I mean by art? To be completely honest with you, I have no idea how to explain that to you. No idea how to answer that question without some sort of context. All art forms have their own sort of context that you have to take into consideration. The medium itself, the maker, the time period something was made in, etc. And I hope you'll understand how I view art by the end of this video, and hopefully that question will be answered. It's very difficult not to compare books to other mediums, specifically like film. I mean, they are like cousins. Very similar, but each can do things that the other cannot. But there's something that, for me, encompasses all art forms. This, for me, is a part of all art and has to be addressed. And that's something that in this video I'm going to call gimmicks. I want to stress as much as possible that I don't mean gimmicks in a bad way. Gimmicks is usually inherently a pretty negative word, but I don't mean it that way in this video at all, because anything and everything can be a gimmick. Everything in all books, movies, music, and art are gimmicks. Some examples in the context of books: horror is a gimmick, monsters are a gimmick, World War II is a gimmick, dystopia is a gimmick, vampires are a gimmick, cancer and other sicknesses are a gimmick, slavery is a gimmick, quirky characters are a gimmick, dragons are a gimmick, magic is a gimmick, smart characters are a gimmick, dumb characters are a gimmick, angst is a gimmick, sex is a gimmick, death is a gimmick, time travel is a gimmick, non-linear storytelling is a gimmick, multimedia, the use of photographs or other things in books, is a gimmick, romance is a gimmick, the use of a ton of characters in a book is a gimmick, weird language is a gimmick, poetic language is a gimmick, twists are gimmicks. All genres and all forms of writing, all different types of characters at their base level, all plot lines at their base level, and plot twists, stories and situations that you can imagine are some form of gimmick, which is basically just to say that they are a part of this pool of ideas and possible things that the writer can choose from to form their book, and practically anything you can imagine is a part of that pool in some way. And what about gimmicks in other art forms? Well, let's take a look at some in film, ones that are more about how a film is formed, how a film is made and put together, rather than anything having to do with the story. Alfred Hitchcock is a known skeptic of sound in film, for example. The very first feature film with sound was The Jazz Singer, which was released in 1927. Before that, all films were silent. Alfred Hitchcock, very understandably, saw sound as something negative. Sound is definitely a gimmick, but one we usually don't think of. Hitchcock believed that sound might muddle films up, to the point where it was no longer cinema, but photographs of people talking. He believed that the use of dialogue in movies would kill them, that dialogue and talking should only be used if there was no other way that the story could be told otherwise. He believed that sound should add something to the film in some new way, like put something on the screen and then use sound to juxtapose that thing that's on the screen, rather than as a cop-out for telling the story visually. We can see this in our movies today, especially through the use of music. The music in movies today tremendously affects the tone of that movie and our understanding of the movie and its tone and what it's trying to say. Imagine some of your favorite movies without their music. Would they be anywhere near as good? Is it a bad thing that they almost definitely wouldn't be? Another gimmick in cinema that we don't really pay much attention to now is color, and people basically thought the same thing about color that they did about sound. It's negative, to them at least. It made everything all bright and cheesy and fantasy-ish, to the point where nothing seems realistic anymore, which sounds really weird, I know, but you have to remember that newspapers at this point have been used pretty much as the primary method of learning about the world and learning about the things happening in the country and everywhere. And photography has always been black and white. People legitimately associated black and white with realism. Color was seen as otherworldly, something only to be used for fantasy. Before color films, the fantasy-ish films were hand-colored frame by frame, like George Méliès films and the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, etc., to kind of use color in a fantastical way. The Wizard of Oz, released in 1939, which is a pretty early color film, is a great example of this. Black and white was used for all of the real-world parts in that movie, and color was used for all of the fantasy world of Oz. Everything taking place in Oz was shot in color. Anyway, I said all of that so we can kind of look objectively at some of the gimmicks in literature and books the way we can at things in film like that. The simplest things to the most complex things can be gimmicks. So what makes a book a work of art rather than a simple piece of escapism or entertainment? Well, that's generally the opinion of the reader. What affects them and what doesn't. What gimmicks, or more likely what combinations of gimmicks, they relate to and connects to them personally. Let's face it though, a lot of books are purely meant to be escapism, and that's perfectly fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with existing to entertain. I mean, some of the best books are just like pure fun entertainment, and it's one of the main reasons why people read. But when does something become not just entertainment, but also art? Another factor that we have to consider is the author's intent, and sometimes we never really know the full, complete intent that the author had in writing this. I mean, there are tons of books that people can argue over. Why did the author write this? Why did they tell this story the way they did, and why did they use the language that they did? Why is this character the way that she is? What connection does this have to the author's life, if any? Is the author's intent even important? In my opinion, it definitely is. I mean, the artist's intent, for the most part, is one of the biggest things about fine art. The other side of that is how the reader or the viewer interprets that book or work of art. But you do have to take author's intent into consideration, and sometimes the author's intent isn't exactly the way it is marketed to us. I don't know if my fellow writers on here have thought about this a lot. I'm sure you probably have, at least a little bit at some point. But when you try to get a book published, you're going to have to sell it. You're going to have to sell the story. You're going to have to sell yourself to the agent or the publisher that you're sending it to. I mean, they'll most likely read the 50 pages you've attached to your letter of intent or whatever anyway, but don't you want them to go into it excited? Don't you want them to be intrigued to read the thing that you're sending them before they even begin reading it? Because that has to carry over to the marketing of the book and selling it to readers. The publisher has to market it in some way, which includes labeling it with a genre and putting it on certain bookshelves in a bookstore. Genres are gimmicks, marketing campaigns are gimmicks, but they must sell the book, and that's just the way it is. But how does that affect the artistic integrity of it all? Does it even affect the artistic integrity of the book at all? I don't really claim to have valid answers to anything that I've said in this video. I'm not even going to show you the books that I personally would consider to be works of art. I definitely considered doing so. That's not really what this is about, though I do want to kind of give you an idea of what I generally view art as in regards to books, movies, fine art, photography, etc. To me, art is something that transcends its gimmicks. It's impossible not to have gimmicks. Books and films especially are built up entirely out of many different combinations of gimmicks, but something that transcends its genre, its characters, its story, its plot, its writing, its language, its format, something that, with the combination of everything that it is, makes an experience that is truly unique or affecting on many different levels. Something that gives us more than what it is. Something that breaks away from the author, the artist, and their intent. Something that no amount of marketing can prepare us for. Art definitely can be entertainment, but not all entertainment is art. Anyway, I know there are probably differing opinions to mine, and I really welcome that in the comments. I really want to have a discussion about this. It's something that really interests me personally a lot. I'd really like to know what you view art as, if it's even important to you in the slightest, if you just like to read books just because they entertain you and just because you like to escape into them. I like that a lot about them as well, but I definitely want to know if these questions that I'm raising are even important to you, if you care about them at all. What makes art for you, if you have thought about it, and if you think about it now, what books that you've read do you consider to be works of art? And anyway, I hope that we can have a cool little discussion in the comments, and I look forward to that. And yeah, just thank you so much for watching. I hope you like this. I have some ideas for more discussion videos like this if you're interested in the future. And yeah, thank you. I'll see you guys very soon.